Watching live, there a press conference from the House GOP leadership on this 36th day of the federal government shutdown. You heard mention that a lot of workers are affected and impacted trying to get them back to work. And that is having a ripple effect on the Americans at large, the population, especially when it comes to travel. And as we look at the holiday travel season between Thanksgiving and New Year's, it is really we expect to feel the pinch here if this continues much longer. So Katie Nastro from Going, our travel expert, our go-to here, is now joining us live on Live Impact News. And Katie, you said that you're feeling this, you're seeing this from other media outlets talking to you, and that it is the topic du jour, isn't it? What are you telling everybody?
Yeah, look, Jen, it is one of those time periods that we have never seen before because this is now the longest shutdown in history. And what we know from previous shutdowns is the theme that we've talked about nonstop is the longer this lasts, the bigger the impacts are going to be for travelers. And what I can say is we've really been sort of lucky in the way of cancellations up until this point. But late last week, we saw the compound of weather and these impacts of the government shutdown come together in a very bad way, where we saw over 1,000 cancellations across the nation at any given point and any given airport. And because of the impacts of the shutdown, everything is just even more stressed. And so what we can tell for travelers is that this is likely going to get much worse in the coming weeks. And we are wouldn't be surprised if this kept or continued through Thanksgiving, which would be incredibly, incredibly messy.
Oh, my goodness. Do you see any regions of the country that are impacted more than others?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say that New York has seen its fair share of ATC staffing triggers in the last few weeks, as well as Texas. Houston is actually grappling with the impacts of the shutdown in the way of TSA. In the last 2 days, they've seen TSA delay times reach well above 3 hours at some point, just for processing, just even to get through, to be able to get to your gate. That's not even when you get to your gate when we see those impacts due to staffing triggers. So we're now starting to see the impacts in areas for TSA delays. And really, there's no clear pattern as to where this has been happening or it could happen in the future. But we will say that areas like Phoenix, New York, Texas, these are all places that we've heard of multiple occasions of seeing impacts on travelers.
So many areas around the country. And like you said, as we get closer to Thanksgiving, that's really going to be a nightmare, anticipated nightmare. So what can travelers do? Anything?
Yeah. Well, I hate the term pack your patience because this is like playing Russian roulette. There is just no idea when you're going to have to pack your patience. But I would suggest to travelers a few things. One, if you can at this point, try to consider driving if possible, especially due to the fact that gas prices are at a multi-year low. So that's one sort of bright spot in terms of alternate transport, as well as if you can try to target an early morning flight. I'm talking 6, 7, 8 a.m. even. Those early morning flights haven't seen the impacts due to the shutdown nearly as much. They really start to compound the later that you get into the mid-morning, into the late afternoon, when you see a lot more business people traveling and just leisure travelers in general. So we want people to wake up a little bit earlier, give themselves the best odds at getting out on time. Early morning flights, just by the data, have a higher on-time arrival rate by 25 to 30 percentage points versus those afternoon or evening flights. So while it's not a magic bullet, it is sort of your best case scenario for navigating these uncertain times.
And when it comes to getting a refund, a lot of customers or passengers, I should say, if they're waiting for so long and if it's the mechanical versus weather, what are the rules when it comes to getting a refund or an exchange? And is a government shutdown at all factored into any of this?
Yeah, one bright spot is the DOT regulations of when you are significantly delayed or can't have your flight outrightly canceled, you are still protected, regardless if this is due to impacts from the shutdown or weather, which is the most common cause of why we see flights getting any disruptions to begin with. So we want you to know that you still are protected. However, what I will say is that the significant delay, it has to be 3 hours or more for this to be in effect. So if you've been waiting 90 minutes, 2 hours, unfortunately, you don't have any recourse there to opt for that refund or to get rebooked on a new flight. But we have heard of airlines sort of prompting customers when it is looking like the delay will continue on, if they want to make a rebooking. I've had this happen to me in app, where the airline will actually give me an alternate flight if I wanted to take. But that's not across the board. They don't necessarily have to do. But we just want travelers to remember, if you are significantly delayed by 3 hours or more or outrightly canceled, you can get rebooked on a new flight, or just decide I don't want to travel at all and take that refund back to your method of payment.
Katie Nastro from Going, thank you for weighing in. Good information, as folks are definitely seeing the impacts now as we are into this 36th day of the government shutdown. TSA agents affected, as well as air traffic controllers. Katie, thanks a lot. See you soon.